A few months ago, I went to Andarkilla one afternoon to buy books, wearing a jacket as a strong cold wind swept through the air. It was drizzling lightly, just enough to make the cold even more intense. Shivering slightly, I managed to finish my book shopping. Nearby, at Jameson Hall, lived an old friend of mine. I thought I'd pay him a visit. He didn't want to come out at first because of the biting cold, but I persuaded him. To warm ourselves up, we had some tea and chatted at a nearby tea stall. We tried to lift our spirits through conversation, but the tea stall wasn't very lively, so we decided to head to DC Hill. DC Hill was peaceful. I noticed a few couples chatting, some people talking on the phone, looked like romantic conversations from their expressions. The environment felt oddly joyful. Despite the cold, no one seemed to care. A tea vendor was yelling to attract customers, and a peanut seller was roasting peanuts using burning charcoal nearby. I suggested we buy some roasted peanuts, though my friend was reluctant. I insisted, and we bought some anyway and kept chatting. Though we were deep in conversation, I kept observing my surroundings. I noticed a couple sitting on the stage area with their daughter, talking. Another young man was walking hand in hand with a girl. Suddenly, a girl entered through the gate. She was alone and wandered around by herself for a while before sitting on a bench not far from us. She had no one with her. It was getting late and cold. She wasn't even wearing warm clothes, just a salwar kameez. Her face wasn't clearly visible in the dim light. I ignored it and focused back on our conversation. Others around us were smoking freely, some heading off on their way. Slowly, the area emptied out, but the girl remained seated. Feeling the place was no longer safe, we decided to leave as it was already 9:30 p.m. I walked my friend part of the way, said goodbye, and returned to Andarkilla. My house is near Kaptai Road, inside a lane at Kazir Hat. To get there, I needed to catch a bus, but it was hard to find one that late. Andarkilla looked unusually quiet that night, which made me uneasy. I focused on finding a bus. Most were only going as far as Bahadur Hat. I didn't want to take multiple buses. So I waited a bit more. Eventually, a new bus came shouting Kalargat, Kalargat. It struck me as odd, such a big bus at this late hour, and so new. I got on and took a seat at the back. That's when I saw her again, the same girl I had seen earlier wandering alone in DC Hill. But how did she get on this bus? This bus came from Newmarket, not from DC Hill. Questions started swirling in my mind. I couldn't make sense of it. I tried to ignore it and looked forward. The bus began moving. The driver turned on the rear lights, and I kept glancing at the girl. She was beautiful, something I couldn't quite notice in the dark before. She looked about 20 or 21. Yet, there was something strange about her. From one angle she looked lovely, from another, her face seemed distorted, almost eerie. Her eyes and face were shining unnaturally. Her hands looked odd. The cold was unbearable for me despite my jacket, yet she seemed unaffected. I noticed beads of sweat on her forehead. How was that possible in this cold? Before long, most passengers had left. I hadn't even noticed the bus emptying out. Now there were only 4 of us, the driver, conductor, me, and the girl. Outside, I saw we'd reached Kaptai Road. The bus wasn't going any further due to the lack of passengers. I got down first, handed the fare to the conductor, and started walking. Checking my phone, I saw the time, 11:58 p.m. I was surprised it had gotten so late. Just then, I noticed the girl had somehow gotten ahead of me, even though I had exited the bus first. How did she overtake me so quickly? When I turned around, the bus was gone. Not even the sound of its engine remained. I turned back again and watched her walk. Her movements weren't normal, nothing like how a regular girl walks. I was about 20 feet behind her. Observing more closely, I saw her form slowly melting, almost dripping. Fear started gripping me. There was no one around, just me and her on that empty road. As I walked, I noticed her shape changing. I don't believe in ghosts or spirits, but what was happening before my eyes was hard to deny. My head felt dizzy. Despite the cold, I was sweating. I could hardly hold myself together. One hand clutched my books tightly. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Just vanished. I was so terrified I could barely walk. The streetlights couldn't pierce the darkness I was feeling inside. Everything felt still. My breath was running out. I looked up. Not a single star in the sky. Just emptiness. I silently and fearfully walked toward my home. On the way, I slipped a little on a dry patch but thankfully didn't fall. Once home, I didn't think about anything else. I just drank some cold water and sat down. And then the thought came again, what really happened tonight? The question still haunts me, where did that girl go?